discipline and I keep my minutes. If there's any questions at the end, just feel free, okay? So sorry I'm not looking at you, just to make time. Good. Okay, good evening, distinguished panel and participants. I thank you for the opportunity of letting me bring you some information related to this topic. I'm Alvarez Conde from Puerto Rico, and I will talk about a personal experience to illustrate the power of blogging, addressing youth, and changing policy, as well as the role of journalists with a gender perspective in coverage. First of all, I will start by explaining how journalism itself brought me to defend the rights of women. When I was 14 years old, I wasn't completely sure that I wanted to be a journalist, but I did want to write. So I tried out an internship in a community educational newspaper. Eventually, one of the stories I got was about domestic violence and if it affected youth in Puerto Rico. I found out that almost 60% of the victims of domestic violence were 14 to 29 years old. I also learned about a concept nobody talked about thanks to the internet and some researchers from the US called dating violence. Sorry. I was 14 when I liked a boy for the first time, and I was shocked to learn through this research that there were signs of abuse. I was denying the fact that this was happening to me or that it was dangerous till I interviewed women at a domestic violence shelter for my story that had started their relationship with the abuser when they were teenagers. Everything changed because now I was aware of the signs of abuse. I knew things now I didn't know before thanks to an assignment. Things got worse. After some months, I tried to leave the relationship. He promised it would change, and then he did for a while, but it happened again. I was controlled and monitored through email and phone calls. When I finally decided to leave the cycle, I was stalked in my school and my house, and he threatened to harm my mother if I left him. He was 17, I was 15 then. There wasn't a law that protected me as a teenager, but there was somewhat of a protection order I could ask for if I suffered stalking. At 15, I was in court filing a protection order. But now let's talk about how one experience changes your life. With the interviews I did for my article for the newspaper, I got inspired and did a book. Nobody helped me publish it because they thought I was joking because I was too young. So I worked to do my dream in a fast food restaurant and eventually a store. And at 19, I published my novel, Lo que no dije, or What I Didn't Say, becoming Puerto Rico's youngest novelist. They invited me to a school to inspire others to write, and then something happened. I started talking about dating violence. Prevention versus intervention is my thing. Not becoming victims of silence is my motto. I did a blog while I saved the money for my book that eventually turned into a website, and 3 years ago a foundation. This blog is an archive of news of domestic violence in Puerto Rico, about dating violence, about international campaigns, etc. For 8 years in a row, I have given conferences in schools and universities and other places as requested, like churches, community groups, government, about dating violence. I told my story, but I also got training. I did my BA in journalism with a minor in gender studies, then did a master's with a specialty in investigative and multimedia journalism. I took documentary filming classes, and now I'm finishing a PhD in history. Cool thing was that I was blogging against domestic violence before multimedia journalism was in, so when the time of job hunting came, I was usually given the multimedia reporter or editor jobs. I've given already more than 267 conferences so far in Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and the US, which makes me bring another topic to the table I definitely believe in, which is cyber activism and the use of technology to bring awareness. But let me tell a bit of what I meant with dating violence and how technology affects these relationships by young people before they marry in the age of technology. We all know the types of violence: emotional, physical, sexual, but in youth, jealousy is reflected in school instead of work. Instead of threatening the kids, they threat the parents. And to control and infuse fear, they use technology for abuse. The use of a phone to report where the person is with constant calling or texting, to tag a location, to track a phone through the GPS system, to do sexting or recording videos and threatening to publish them if the person leaves them, which also leads to bullying in most cases. The request of a photo to prove where you are, to ask for your friend's number to call somebody to see if it's true you're with them, to check your phone without permission, to have your personal passwords, emails, Facebook, etc. I have also studied and seen the relationship of teenage pregnancy with dating violence, not only through rape, but because of alteration of the contraceptive method, and also after getting the girl pregnant, fastly recommending an abortion or the morning after pill as a solution, with serious emotional consequences if the girl didn't want to get pregnant in the first place or do an abortion for any personal beliefs or health risks. And make no mistake, there are also women aggressors in dating violence, and this also affects the LGBT community. So now I'll jump to the latest news. This 2013, I wrote 2 bills. A citizen cannot present a bill or a law, but a senator and representative can. So I did a campaign where I tried copying something the US does, which is they have declared February as the Dating Violence Awareness Month. This doesn't apply to Puerto Rico because of our status, so I did my own bill and went out and did a media tour while I visited 22 schools in February. I also wrote and proposed a dating violence law that would include the use of technology and emotional abuse, often not penalized, and gives power to young women to ask for a protection order. The bills are on the floor, and now I'm working with the Senate as a legislative assistant and assessor. Me and journalists and activists writing bills at 27 years old. If you need copies of laws that are being presented, I'll send them if you write to me. I do, however, want to point out a bill that was done to demand that the education department in all public schools teach with gender perspective. This was attacked by a religious group, but it's on the floor. I have to point out that the senator that presented this is a woman, Maritere Gonzalez, and it's important I say she has supported me and how important it is not only to have women in politics, but to have women in politics that are feminists and believe in rights of women. I've seen how some women politicians are against women's rights, and in the US campaigning primaries of Obama and Hillary Clinton, we also observe sexism in the coverage. And I wonder how that will be done again when she runs for president, and hopefully we can make sure that the US has a woman president for the first time. To finish with this topic, I have to give some data. Without putting a single ad, my website and blog has more than 250,000 visits around the world, which is what you're seeing on the screen. And it's interesting, the traffic has increased because I have information in Spanish. It's very, very important we deal with language barriers and cultural differences when we discuss topics. Because you might do a great campaign, but because it's not translated or done in a language with cultural perspective, then some people don't get the info. One thing I'm doing now is I'm training people to give conferences in schools. I call that program multipliers to make sure this is done. It does not depend only on me. This last 25th of November, the International Day Against Violence of Women, I did a video based on a song I wrote against abuse of women and girls. And with international campaigns that were public, I edited a video and now have a song, for example, on YouTube. That was like a campaign this last week. I wrote also a manual with 2 more journalists and the help of a journalism foundation, which is in Spanish. I can send it if you write, and I will post it on Twitter later, which I already offered to translate, but we'll need a sponsor for its publishing. So it's in Spanish now, but hopefully it's gonna be in English soon, so let me know. On how to cover violence against women, domestic and sexual, and how to prevent gender stereotypes in coverage. So that's something you can do, train journalists. I'm already submitting to the board of the National Association of Hispanic Journalists I belong to a proposal to have this workshop done in the next convention. So as you see, there's a lot to be done, and nobody is too small or too young to do change. To finish, I cannot leave without expressing one big concern I have. Somebody said earlier in a workshop that without data you make invisible a problem, and you make it impossible to attack it well. Puerto Rico has a serious issue on data because of our political position. We're not always included in research because we're not part of the United Nations, and sometimes people assume the US is doing research there, and we are lost in trying to define what we are exactly. US, Caribbean, Latin America, which is, I need to point out the need of data of Puerto Rico, from Puerto Rico, and taking into consideration its people and culture. All we know, based on the news that personally I record in my blog and archive, is that 1 woman dies every 15 days in the hands of her partner in Puerto Rico. We are US citizens at birth, but we don't vote for the president. Our army and our vets serve the US, and right now we have Oscar Lopez Rivera in a prison in Chicago, held for 32 years, the longest held political prisoner because of his beliefs in independence, which I wish you help us asking for the excarceration. But I don't want to talk about our politics. Many debates go on in the United Nations Decolonization Committee about Puerto Rico, only place where we can talk, and it's hard to talk about freedom or peace when you don't have a voice in these forums or in general, where you feel owned. But I will address UNESCO, one particular detail, culture, and with that gender and media. Our flag, our tradition, our language, our patrimony, and our history has a cultural independence and identity that is very different from the passport I carry on my purse. With this, I kindly suggest and ask that we are included in future conferences on gender and media, regardless if I'm here. I want to sit for my people, and I kindly ask you, all officials and all governments, to request that Puerto Rico becomes an active member with its own voice in UNESCO. So with that, I request, if anybody has any doubts or anything, please contact me. I'll be happy to answer. And thank you, UNESCO, with all my heart, for the wonderful opportunity you have given me. Thank you for the forum and by letting me speak and participate here today, above all with peace and without censorship. You can count with me now and forever. Thank you.